Lights out.
Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of SleepTech Talk, the sleep podcast, with your hosts and friends, Emerson Kerr, Robert Miller, and me, Dr. Gerald George Moneycroat. You can just call me Jerry. It's a whole lot easier, a lot less syllables. Anyway, we took a few weeks off, crazy schedules, summer, all sorts of things happening with different people's families, and we're back at it once again. And to tell you all a little bit, hey, before we do that, just a little word. Guys, gals, friends, everybody, neighbors, countrymen, lend me your likes. We want you to please hit the like button, hit the stars or whatever it is on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, YouTube. Help the algorithm go out to all the sleep techs out there. Your comments, your feedback, it's all extremely important. It keeps the podcast up and running. Let's make sure that this podcast that's meant for you, the sleep techs, keeps going and goes to the right people. Then I'm going to toss it off to Emerson to tell us a little bit about what's going on in the future.
All right, thanks, Jerry, and it's good to see you and Robert both. I think the first thing I want to share is we are definitely open to your ideas. There's a lot we can cover, but if there are some really unique leaders in sleep, some interesting stories, please reach out to us through the Facebook page, because we certainly don't have all the answers, and we would love to make sure that we're touching on unique ideas, because really and truly, that's the heart of this, is what can we learn from each other? What can we learn about the future? What's coming? What are best practices? And, if you look at the folks we've had so far, it's really captured that, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But I want to give you a snapshot of what's coming. We've got 3 guests lined up. All of them are fantastic in their space. Should be next week. We have Breton Lane. Breton hails presently from Kansas, but her business is in San Diego. It's Better Night Sleep, formerly known as Sleep Data. Breton's story is fantastic. She kind of grew up in sleep like all of us. You'll hear that she kind of fell backwards into it, but in her role leading the Sleep Data Better Night program, we've seen an organization that's really blossomed, really grown. And what we're going to hear about is a little bit about that journey. We're going to hear about what they're doing now. They've got a very robust coaching program that's a part of their business. And that's going to be a lot of fun to hear about, because she's very passionate. She's a former AST board member, so she's definitely invested in the future, sees, the sleep technologist value at every stage of the game. The next guest we're going to have is going to be Amy Korn-Rivas. Amy is a current board member with the AST. She is a certified sleep coach. She is an RPSGT, and she is a CCSH. So she's a triple threat. She's got it all going on. And I think what's going to be fun about talking to Amy, we're going to hear her passion. She's an extremely passionate clinician, very passionate about coaching and the role the sleep educator can play. But I think we're going to learn some interesting things too. I think part of what we're going to enjoy with Amy are some of the things she's been learning about coaching, in particular being a certified health coach, that the role we can play as coaches is far more than we imagine, especially when we put ourselves out there and add to our education to become a coach from the standpoint of being able to guide the patient or client through a journey. Because it's more than just teaching them about sleep. It's about helping them transform their behavior and change who they are. And that's we're going to probably hear a lot of that about Amy. We've got some others on the horizon we're talking to right now. We'll eventually have Leah DeMarteau from Well Necessities out of Shreveport, Louisiana. We're working on a date for that, but we have her commitment. She's a super passionate leader, ran for office once. She's very much another passionate leader in sleep, who literally built her sleep business with one Alice 3 system, Alice 3 system that she borrowed from somebody once upon a time, and built her business from 1 unit to 2 and on up to multiple labs. It's a great American story, but Those are some of the things we have on the horizon. We've got some more things planned for Sleep Tech Awareness or Appreciation Week. That's also awareness, but it's Sleep Tech Appreciation Week and a little later on. But we do have a great lineup, and we're looking forward to having those guests. So, guys, as we talk about today, Robert, we've had some really interesting people on. Everyone from Sri Roy to Matthew Allard and so many others. As you think about who we've had on so far, what are some of the things that really stood out to you with some of our guests in the last few weeks?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that's pretty interesting to me, and we actually didn't. I think you may have left it off in part of the description for Leah. She's also one of the most fun people to hang out with in sleep. I've only had the pleasure of actually meeting and hanging out with her at a couple of the APSS meetings over the years, but lots of fun. Yeah, lots of fun. Yeah, so I would say that probably Drew would be one of the folks who stood out the most for me. I mean, I know that his passion absolutely comes through when he talks about sleep and being able to be a sleep coach for patients and his approach to just sort of sleep in general. I know we want to have him back. People have asked about having Drew back, with us here to talk a little bit more about the program that he's involved with, and just maybe even how he is able to see some things that are on the horizon related to adherence monitoring and sleep coaching, and trying to mirror those two, and really to bring value in the durable medical equipment space as it relates to long-term adherence. Because it's one thing to set 100 patients a month up on a CPAP device, but when half of those patients are going to abandon their therapy, then from a treatment standpoint, you've sort of failed half of your patients. And then the other side of that is also the revenue component, which is certainly a big factor too, because it takes a lot of resources to get a patient on therapy and to get them adherent, or at least to even run the program to get them adherent. And then when there's a failure there, you sort of drain resources, and ultimately the patient doesn't end up in a place that you would want them to be. So I think that's probably a conversation. I know we also had Dr. Noah on, who talked about the VCOM, and I know that we could have probably had an hour-long show to be able to talk about all of the things related to his CPAP training wheels, if you would, for patients who are struggling with CPAP pressure, and how his invention has been able to help a lot of patients already start to become adherent to CPAP therapy. One small piece just added to the CPAP circuit has been able to help many patients. Number one, I know that he talked a little bit about eliminating the need for a chin strap, or maybe even a full face mask, and then also ultimately changing how the pressure is delivered to the patient so that it makes it easier for them to breathe on. So we've had some good stuff. I'm looking forward to sort of our fall lineup. I think we should give it away a little bit. I'm going to say it before I even ask you to, if it's okay. But Sleep Tech Appreciation Week, look for multiple shows. That week we're going to show off and really show out, as it relates to our industry and our field. We're proud of the field that we all work in and the work that we do. So we want to highlight as many of those, those things that week as we can. So stay tuned for Sleep Tech Appreciation Week. There'll be some great things on the horizon.
Thanks, Robert. Sorry, I was trying to find the mute button. And I was just thinking of a few of the other folks that we had on the show. And one person that kind of sticks out for me is simply because I've known her for many, many years. And that was Sarah Moe, and how she was able to take the concept of how do you improve other people's health, sleep health, and that came just out of her passion for talking about it. She was known to be talking about it at restaurants. She talks to a waiter who's tired and asks questions, and finds out that not the patient, but the waiter or the server could possibly have sleep apnea, or go out to the school or something like that, and keep talking to people, and just kept talking and talking. And ultimately, her friends and family say, why don't you go do that for a living instead of doing what you're doing right now? And she thought, why not? Ended up developing and creating her own successful niche where she has these huge, giant corporate entities that are her customers now, where she's going out and educating them on what is the proper way to sleep and how to improve productivity because of sleep. And I remember the great Max Hershkowitz, Dr. Max Hershkowitz, who would say in his talks how if we had changed the term from sleep to wake, and it was wake health and how sleep affects that, it would have been a different story. People would have been looking at this very differently. And I definitely was able to get that information across to her clients. And so for me, that was very interesting to think about. Another person that kind of stuck in my mind was, I believe, I think Emerson, you brought it up, was Matthew Allard. And like all these people, they all said, I just kind of stumbled into this industry. Matthew had no clinical experience at all, and not a clinician in any way. However, when he, with one of his family members, had sleep apnea, he wanted to learn as much as he could about it. And then when he got laid off, he took an opportunity to work for a manufacturer in sleep apnea. And now he's loved it so much that he's moved on into the dental space, where again, using a dental appliance or an oral device to help alleviate the symptoms of sleep apnea. So to me, that was also very interesting, the transition from somebody who worked in a completely different field in oil and gas and moved over to this clinical piece where he's not even a clinician, yet the passion that he brings to the table is just so strong. And I love to see that in people when they talk about sleep health. Emerson, how about you, sir?
I think it's kind of so hard, as all of these, we've been so fortunate to have so many great guests. One in particular that I absolutely loved hearing her was Julie DeWitt. Julie's passion for pediatrics is unparalleled. I mean, that we know a lot of people in pediatric sleep, but Julie's one of those that, she lives and breathes it 24/7. And it really came through. If there's one thing I came away with, we needed more time with her, because we barely scratched the surface of what it means to really be a pediatric sleep technologist. So that's she's someone I want back as soon as we can. I would love, as we begin to think about the future, having a series where we have some of these pediatric sleep technologists come through and maybe touch on some really specific topics, because with her, there was just so much, yet, we could drill down further. Also really loved having on our unique guests, Sri Roy and Michael DiDomenico. They both are champions for the sleep industry through their marketing and press businesses. And I think what's interesting is they're so different from each other. Sri is really, she's passing on a lot of scientific information. She's on the cutting edge of what's happening in sleep. And it's really amazing to see someone who also, like us, didn't start in sleep, but has really turned it into her passion, and lives that information. Michael brings a whole different flavor to this. He's a marketer, he is a business guy, but he sees our value, and he's someone that we're also, the three of us, along with joining Robert at the Carolina Sleep meeting and being guests for that great meeting in Myrtle Beach coming up, which we hope everybody will come to. We're also going to be joining Michael in next year in Philadelphia for his meeting, and we're just so lucky to be able to do that, especially as a team. That's not something we really dreamed about. When we started this out, we were just wanting to have a successful podcast, not really. But this has been such a blessing, and being able to be at both of those conferences is going to be a lot of fun, and it just continues our mission of educating our peers and learning from our peers all at the same time. As we think about kind of what's coming up next. Robert, what are some of the things you would like to see as we embark on the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would like for us to talk about, is in particular, I would say, is some of the things related to the updates in technology as it relates to sleep medicine. And really in particular, there seems to be this move to try to do more level 2 type testing in the home. I know that there's a few different manufacturers who have equipment that has some of that capability. And the other thing too, I think it would be helpful for us as sleep techs to really truly understand the technology between some of the very small home sleep testing devices versus the ones that are more traditional that have belts and cannulas and those sort of things. So we really understand what the differences are, why some may be appropriate for some patients, some not for others, and just so that as sleep techs we just don't sit back and let technology sort of take over the field, and without us having some input and ensuring that we're sort of keeping our clinical focus on the right things and not just the smallest, cheapest type of test.
I really like that thought, and I really definitely would like to see that as well, the embracing of technology. But I would also want to throw in one piece there, something that Drew had mentioned, that we can never forget where we all started is the folks that are sleeping our patients, right? The ones who are setting them up, hooking them up, observing them. I'd love to see a few more night techs on the show. So if anybody out there is listening, has a suggestion, please toss their names out our way, and we would love to get some really good night techs on the show. And guys, any other thoughts or things before we close? We're getting close to time now.
Hey, quick shameless plug, www.carolinasleepsociety.org. Go on the website today, register for the Carolina Sleep Society Conference. You'll get to meet Jerry and Emerson and myself at the meeting. In fact, the other two guys are speaking. I'm part of the Carolina Sleep Society board, so I'll be running around trying to make sure that the meeting is running as it should be. But you'll find the agenda and all of the information you need about how to register for the conference. Emerson talked about our Philadelphia excursion. That's not until 2023. We'll give you all the details about that a little later in the year. And you'll hear lots about that also from Michael DeMonico before the end of the year as well. So that's it. Shameless plug, Carolina Sleep Society, register today.
Not a shameless plug at all. Hey guys, team out.
Myrtle Beach isn't a bad place to hang out either.
Exactly,
right.
Exactly. It's Myrtle Beach. And to all our listeners out there, you get to see your favorite talking heads in the flesh.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
And we'll even give out autographs, okay? If that's what it takes. We'll even give out autographs.
I heard there's a rumor we might actually record a podcast while we're there. So we may pull someone just out of the crowd and interview them for the podcast. So that's a possibility.
Podcast, autographs, selfies, what have you. But
that's right.
With all that being said, it's time to close. Don't forget to hit the like button, to hit the stars, give us that rating, your comments, and don't forget to share with all your friends out there, to all the sleep techs. And we can't thank you enough for all your listeners out there. We sincerely appreciate your support. Let's keep it going. And until next time, we say thank you and lights on.